You're listening to Watching Paint Dry. I'm your host, Emma Jane Palin, and this week I'm joined by another wonderful guest and friend of our curated abode, Sara Brown. If you don't follow Sara already, hit pause on this podcast or video if you're watching and head over to give her a follow. In my opinion, she is one of the most underrated creators out there, and her account provides so much inspiration and joy with lots of crafty makes and interior snippets. She actually even made the curtains in the shop, so she's also got more in her tool belt than just painting and decorating. Sara owns lifestyle brand Dolly Rocket, which offers an amazing range of handmade homeware, and she's also a size-inclusive brand consultant, offering assistance to brands for extending their size ranges and understanding larger bodies. As with Sara's varied hustles, our chat was also pretty free-flowing, with topics from how she decorates her rentals to how she got into crafting. One of the super interesting things that came up was size inclusivity within interiors, and as I mentioned at the time, this wasn't something that I'd really considered, which just goes to show why it's important to hear from a range of people, especially when it comes to design. I think Sara would be an amazing asset to any commercial design teams, so do get in touch if that's you. Plug over, it's time to grab a cuppa, preferably popping it on a Dolly Rocket coaster, and settle into our chat. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for helping me add a little bit of paint to the
No
space
worries.
today. I wanted to kick things off just to talk about your home. So you're in a rented home, but it's still very you. It's still jam-packed with colour and pattern. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we live in a 3-bed, I think it's probably Victorian, semi. And it was like a big jump up from where we were living before. We moved out of London during lockdown from a 1-bed to a 3-bed, and that was like the best thing. So yeah, now I'm still trying to add colour to it and add more and more like personality to it in ways that I can with it being a rental. I think I break the rules slightly a little bit.
I was going to say, how much are you allowed to do technically?
Well, in our contract, we have been told that we're allowed to paint things neutrally, which to me, I was like, what's neutral? Black's kind of a neutral. Not that black is where I'd be going. But yeah, I've definitely sort of pushed the boundaries a little bit, and I'm just ready to paint when we leave. That's kind of, I think, what I've done in other properties before. I just commit to the fact that if I want this room to be a colour, then I've just got to paint it when I leave. So
yeah, I think sometimes you have to commit to maybe losing a bit of your deposit just for that happy vibe when you're in there. I'm a really firm believer in your environment really impacting your mood and having an effect on how you live your life. And I'm sure you're in agreement that it really can. And you've done so many like crafty things to your house that are super clever. I love all the things that you kind of do with fabric. And painting frames. Any other top tips for renters out there?
So I think like, although I know in a lot of rental contracts there might be stipulations that you can't drill into the wall, but at the same time that can actually be one of the most like low consequence kind of thing that you can do to a wall, let's say, to add something to it.
So you just fill it in afterwards.
Exactly, fill it in and just repaint that a little bit if it's just white or something, or if you're going to have to repaint the whole room anyway, then it's fine. So one of the things we've done in a couple of our rooms is built bespoke like radiator covers that kind of also act as little side tables. In one room that we've got in our kitchen, we have a lamp on. I did that with my dad. It was also like a really nice kind of learning experience to learn how to make things. So that's like lilac and has a scallop edge. And then last winter, we made a radiator cover for our hallway, and I did that just with my husband. And again, that was such a fun activity. And I was so proud of it in the end because it was quite a fresh thing for us to try doing just us. And it's very sturdy, hasn't broken.
So we like to hear.
Exactly. It almost looks slightly like theatrical. A lot of people have told me that it looks like a stage. But it's like a built wooden construction, and then I've added a curtain kind of hiding the radiator, but obviously we left like slits at the top so heat still comes out and it works fine.
And you could take it with you?
Yeah, absolutely, we could take it with us.
Yeah.
It's literally only attached to the wall with like 2 screws.
I'm so here for things that you can also take with you to other places and immediately make it your own with stuff like that. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your day job. You're a size inclusive brand consultant. And I know that we've had many conversations. I mean, even like 2 years ago, I feel like I was really naive about this. But you're working with brands to encourage larger sizes and just being more inclusive in general. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So I come from a fashion design background, and I've always been plus size throughout my kind of teen to adulthood. And I gradually went into the fashion design world, but always had a focus on size inclusivity. So when I did my graduate collection, it was size inclusive, and the brands that I worked for were plus size or size inclusive. And I basically am just obsessed with it. I think quite a lot of it comes from like the fact that personally I can't buy everything I want to. So I want to push brands to make clothes that will fit me. And standing up for the fact that I think brands should support everyone, really. You know, there's a lot of conversation around inclusivity, and so many brands throw that around when they're not. So part of the work that I do is encouraging brands, so talking to them about how they can expand their sizes by grading, so quite like technical, I suppose, like doing actual fitting of clothing. And then also just talking about the language that they should be using around bodies. And I've done sort of educational courses for teams that have been about fat phobia and like the history of fat phobia. And I suppose just how it flows into everyday life and how we can kind of disrupt that.
Yeah, I think you've taught me so much on the content creation side of things. Like, it's not just about the brands, it's actually about having like your allies, like peers and allies basically advocating for you too. Like, if a brand is only stocking to a size 14, that's not normal.
Yeah.
And there's always an excuse like, oh, it's hard to, or you know, people don't buy from us, but that's kind of not really what it's about. And we see so many brands doing like body positivity and inclusivity campaigns using basically all white women that are under a size 16, and that's just not representational of the world that we live in, and really almost makes people feel inadequate, I would say.
Absolutely.
And we've certainly like talked about this before, and what it means to be a woman, and the things that get almost shoved down your throat from a young age, to think that it's wrong to be a certain way, or like not beach ready. Like, some of the adverts that we still see is wild.
It is. I think there's so many brands that will, you know, try and sell their product with that illusion, and they're not backing it up by the business side. They're not creating product that actually can clothe everyone. And on another side of things, like one thing I remember that really frustrated me was a designer brand that I really admired. It was International Women's Day, and they were talking about women that they loved. And they spoke about this singer that they really loved. They shared the most beautiful photograph of her. And it drove me insane, because she was probably about a size 18 or 20, and the brand went up to a size 14, 16. And I was like, how can you be talking about this woman as one of your favorite women? Like, you're obsessed with her at the moment and you think she's incredible, yet you don't believe she's valid enough to even clothe her. Like, you just can't be both of those things. And I just don't think people see it.
Do you think your love of interiors kind of came from being able to access that more easily, like the colour and the pattern and the things that you choose to wear? You can kind of get that a little bit easier in the interiors world.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely in part. Like, when I left uni, I was determined I was going to start my own fashion brand immediately, realising how much money that requires is off the charts. And so then when I have started my brand, and I've been slowly kind of tipping like next level of product base and stuff, I ended up going into the product design and interiors more. I think because there was that freedom of everyone could be included in it, and I've always had like a love for all sides of it, and kind of just wanting to be fully embraced in a world of colour and print. So I think in my mind it flows through like the same sort of design mentality. I've always wanted to sort of design a print, have a tablecloth in it, napkins in it, wear the same dress as it, and just like fully be in that space. So
yeah, and you mentioned kind of in the little chat that we had before this about like inclusivity within interiors, like size inclusivity, which again wasn't even something that I'd thought about. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I think like living in a bigger body, there's lots of spaces that can make you feel uncomfortable, because a lot of things are designed for people that are smaller than you. Even taking in like really basic things, like I was trying to buy an office chair, and so many office chairs are tested on a weight that's much less than me. So they're not even really like guaranteed that I could sit in this chair and be comfortable. I understand obviously that's, you know, just an industry sort of testing thing, and I bought one that wasn't meant to be for me and it's fine. But at the same time, there's a lot of barriers that you wouldn't really consider. And another thing is more in commercial spaces, say restaurants or shopping. One thing that I would really encourage people to consider is how comfortable the seating are. Are you offering like flexible seating? Like if you have a restaurant, do you have an area where there is, say, a banquette, so you could sit there and have more support and be a little bit more comfortable, but then at the same time, do you have like chairs that can move and arms that are wide enough, or, you know, just things that offer just more options and more comfortable spaces for different people. And I think that also comes into account with like different abilities as well.
Yeah, of course. I think ergonomics is something that probably also needs to be updated. Like in general, like I'm pretty sure they're just based on like male measurements from a while ago. So it's also, I think, something that people just don't even, like if you're able-bodied and smaller, then you just wouldn't even consider it. But people need to start considering it. Like that's what design and interiors is about, right? Like making people feel comfortable in a space, making them feel warm and welcomed. Like it shouldn't be on you.
I know, I think on a personal level, I understand why someone walking down the street that is, you know, let's say a standard size 10 or something, I understand if they're able-bodied, like they don't need to think about it. I'm not really asking them to think about it. But coming from like if you were a designer and you're trying, your whole job is to fix problems and create new ideas, you should be taking into consideration those aspects as well. And inclusivity, I think, is such an important part of our world to progress. So yeah, I'd 100%. Love to be able to work more with brands to kind of advise on that.
I feel like that's absolutely your calling, almost like more so than fashion. I think that your eye for interiors is amazing. So I think you'd be able to work really cohesively with designers in kind of like creating spaces that welcome everybody. Let's talk about your own brand a little bit. So Dolly Rocket.
Yes.
We've obviously done little things together when this was a pop-up in December, but you do all kinds of things. So tell me about it.
So it mostly started from my love of print design, and I took that into textiles for tablescapes. And then from that, I created more and more things that you can add to your home. So the coaster that I think you mentioned maybe is...
I love the coasters.
Yeah, I love spotting them in your videos. And everyone where I spot one, I'm like, yay! But yeah, I made some coasters a couple of years ago, and they've really become my key product. And I think it's just the little parts, like the little things you can add to your home that just give you a better day. So that really makes me happy to know that there's lots of people that will be sitting down to their morning cup of tea, cup of coffee, and they have this thing that makes them smile. So yeah, I'm kind of gradually just want to design and make lots of different things. I'm obsessed with making, and it's amazing to be able to sell things and have other people enjoy it.
Yeah, speaking of I'm going to do you a little promo on the coasters, because I feel like when I bought those coasters, Josh, my husband, was like, why spend so much money on coasters? Not that they're super expensive, but obviously they're handmade, they're crafted, so they come at an appropriate cost.
Yeah.
But every time I have a coffee in the morning, and they just sit on my table all the time, and I absolutely love them. Everyone always comments on them. When we had them in the shop, I was just like, honestly, it will be the best money that you ever spend because you actually use them every single day. I guess as well, like I'm always in awe of your videos, both fashion and home. And I think in this current climate, we're really like people are looking to level up their skills, and you're someone that they can come to do that. How did you get into like crafting? I know you studied things, but it's quite hard to put that into play in real life.
Yeah, so I think my mum was really the person that initially got me sewing. She was a sewer herself and making clothes for herself. And one of my first memories is this kind of like dot to dot picture thing that we had. And rather than drawing it, you sewed dot to dot. And that's just such a core memory. And I think that I suppose got me starting wanting to use my hands. And I have just been obsessed with crafts ever since, and making, designing. And on the other side, my dad is an engineer. So I think now that I've kind of got more of an eye for trying to build things in wood and more like solid materials, I'm kind of leaning into his side a bit more and thinking about just like, it really feels like problem solving. And I feel like you must kind of have that mindset from like your carpentry classes.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely love getting stuck in with things like that, but I'm certainly more of like, I'm trying to move more into sewing because I really want to be able to like make my own clothes and customize things. But certainly when it comes to like getting creative with wood, I like love it.
Yeah, I just think there's the satisfaction you get from experiencing making something and then getting to use it every day is just beyond anything else. I love it so much.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping that we can do that here in this space, do some workshops, hopefully get you involved in that as well. I think it's probably time to move on to my quick fire questions.
Amazing.
So are you ready for them?
Okay, yes.
Ready to go home or renovation project?
Renovation project.
Minimalist or maximalist?
I mean, absolutely minimalist. No.
It's like, do I even need to ask?
Maximalism all the way.
DIY or hire trades?
Definitely DIY.
Open plan or private zones?
I think private zones. Yeah.
Wallpaper or paint?
I want to say wallpaper, but I've never wallpapered, and that's, I think, as a renter. Mm-hmm. But my time will come.
Dining table or TV meal? This is everyone wants to say dining table, but they know it's not true.
It's probably TV meal is the usual.
Big light or little light?
Oh my God, absolutely little lights.
Carpet, yay or nay?
Mostly nay.
New or vintage furniture?
Vintage.
Painted ceiling, yes or no?
Yes, 100%.
Woo. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in the shop very soon.